Come vape with me. I'm making this movie now because I'm not going to be here on the 20th of May. I'm not going to be in the UK on the 20th of May because I'm going to France for a holiday. And the 20th of May is a very important date in the UK for vapers and smokers. We've got new legislation coming out. Some of it is totally daft. And so this particular video I want to put on the internet because it's what I want to say before the 20th, because from the 20th we might not be able to speak freely about vaping. We cannot speak freely about smoking because talking about smoking is not politically correct. It's not done. It's not done to praise smoking in any way. And smokers have no power because they have been, through the media and through disapproval and through a change in society, they've been muzzled. So I want to say a few things to smokers. Smoking is a delicious habit. It's comforting, stimulating, relaxing, and for me it felt like a good friend. All the best times in my life were celebrated with a fag, with a smoke. Smoking, in my mind, has always been part of me. It's my life. And peak moments in my life have been celebrated by having a cigarette. You can overdo smoking. Just like anything, you can overdo sports. You can over-exercise. You can over-drink water. You can overeat. So smoking is a bit punishing on the body. Some of us, like me, and I'm very lucky, managed to smoke for 50 years without very much visible effect. In fact, over 50% of smokers do not get affected by their smoking. The World Health Organization says up to 50% of smokers have smoking-related illnesses, which means, say it's 20%, 80% of smokers are unaffected, or they might be affected but they don't actually die from smoking-related illnesses. So this is part of the sort of twister sticks and a bit of game playing with numbers that tobacco control do. If you're a smoker, don't necessarily think you are going to die from smoking a cigarette or your cigarettes. Of course, even smokers know that you can over-smoke yourself. I often did it at a party, and the next morning I'd feel grim, not just because of the booze, but because of too much smoking. Smoking was such a delicious habit for me. It comforted me. It did all the things that a friend would do. I considered smoking my friend, and I could never deal with the grief of losing my friend. Excuse me. I never gave up smoking. I never gave up smoking because that would be giving half of me away. Me, I was the smoker. It was my friend, my fellow companion in life. But tobacco control promote abstinence. You may not smoke, and they have this worldwide vision of a smoke-free world. Smoke-free world doesn't mean that it's smoke-free, because we get smoke in our world from all sorts of things. It means smoker-free. So this is a persecution of a small group of people who enjoy smoking, because a little group of people with this ideology that they envisage a world with no smokers in it. It's a personal assault, and I felt that was it to me. I've disliked tobacco control with passion for all my life. Well, they weren't here all my life. Once, smoking was perfectly normal. We all did it. Well, there were a few that didn't do it, and they were the abnormal ones. And so my life, most of it, was in a relaxed world where smoking just was. It was something people did. People smoked. And men smoked more than women, and everybody smoked in their houses. Nobody would have dreamed to have gone outside for a cigarette. And then tobacco control came along and made my life a misery. And also, tobacco control made the life of smokers worse, and I'll explain why. The tobacco manufacturers changed the tobacco, and we know with the changed tobacco, they reduced the nicotine in cigarettes so that people were buying lights. I tried lights. What useless things they were. I smoked double the quantity because there was no nicotine in them. They talked about the tar, T-A-R. It doesn't mean tar, as in black lungs. Smokers don't get black lungs. That is a myth. Who gets black lungs? Well, people with diseased lungs get black lungs, even non-smokers. The blackness in the lung is an indication of a disease. Diseased lungs are black, but smokers' lungs aren't black. In fact, surgeons can't tell the difference between a smoker's lung and a non-smoker's lung, and they're using smokers' lungs for transplants. Tobacco control made smoking more dangerous for people by introducing or by making tobacco manufacturers make this awful light cigarettes and change what is in tobacco, adding additives and all sorts of nasty things. So in commercial cigarettes there is a lot of ugly, iffy stuff, and smoking is definitely hard on our bodies. Especially you can feel that when you've overdone it. But in this whole story of tobacco control and smoking, it's nicotine that's been demonized. Do you know that a lot of doctors in the UK still believe that nicotine is addictive and it causes cancer? Well, we actually know that nicotine is not particularly addictive, and the jury is really way out still about whether it causes cancer, because there's a big doubt about that. And I believe that smokers should be allowed to smoke. Smokers should be considered. They've been persecuted and maltreated and abused by this tiny group of people who want to see a world without any smokers in it. What if we said we want to see a world without any black people in it, or without any Jews in it? What would we call that attitude? So there's never any consideration for smokers. There's no smoking rooms. We've chucked smokers out onto the streets, and then we complain because everybody can see them outside. And now in the UK there's areas where they don't even want you smoking in the open air. So it's actually got completely insane. And I believe that smokers should be protected. They should have protection in their own homes, in their own cars, when they go to hospitals for mental health problems, if they're in prison. There are times, in fact, even if you rent a hotel room, in fact, that is your home when you're not at home. So these things are not considered for smokers. There is no consideration for smokers. And I believe that our laws should have some consideration that smokers are indeed a group and they choose to smoke. And this idea of a world in the future with no smokers, because it's not no tobacco, it's always aimed at the person who's using. To me, I think silence gets you nowhere. And I am a fully back smokers if they want to smoke. I don't smoke, funnily enough. Accidentally, I changed to vaping. And I accidentally changed because in my mind I was never going to give up smoking. Ever. Smoking was my very best friend, and just the idea of not having it in my life was too terrible to even imagine. So I didn't bother trying because I thought if it's going to kill me, it's going to kill me. And just while I'm talking about killing people, this thing about plain packaging and having health porn on each packet is a crime against all of us, because we know that nocebo, which is the opposite of placebo, really works. And if you think smoking kills, smoking causes this, that, and the other, and you have the added visual trigger when you see toes that are infected or arms lopped off, and pictures, even sometimes they're not of even smokers. They've been nicked from other conditions and they are put on cigarette packs to tell us that smoking is dangerous. Well, what it tells us is a criminal act. It's a crime against your mind, because when you see that, you take it inside of you, you say it over and over and over in your brain, and as we think, so that occurs. To me, tobacco control and all their ways and means that they are using to manipulate the minds of people is a criminal action. So I'm saying that now. I don't like it. I'm not a smoker, but smokers should be defended. And I do, because in my mind I'm a smoker. I don't smoke. I vape. And I vape because it's a substitute to smoking. I vape because I don't smoke. And I don't smoke because I vape. And I love vaping just as much as I loved smoking. I've got good devices. I use nice e-liquid, and I've made sure that I never ever want to smoke a cigarette because I prefer vaping. So this movie is for smokers. Vaping is less punishing on your body than smoking. If you vape too much in the evening, which has happened to me, I know the next morning I don't feel the same way as I did when I used to overdo the cigarettes. There's a sort of lightness of being I have, being a vapor rather than a smoker, a sort of clean feeling. With smoking, I was always worrying about having a shower and a bit of perfume and perhaps mint to clear my breath. I actually never think twice about that now. Actually, I do have a fragrance, and often it's the flavor that I'm currently vaping. And sometimes I can't smell it on my clothes, but seeing I actually like the smell and I like the flavor, it's not unpleasant in any way. Nicotine is the thing. Nicotine is my friend. And I've switched the delivery of my nicotine from cigarettes because I don't want all the extra stuff. I don't want all this crap, actually, that the tobacco companies have added to cigarettes. That is what makes you addicted to smoking all the other stuff in the tobacco. And so I am saying to you, if you're in any way dubious about your smoking, have a bash at vaping and think of it simply that you're switching your nicotine delivery method, because vaping is a substitute for smoking. It's a substitute for smoking. It's actually not. It wasn't invented as a way to quit smoking, and I've no intention of quitting smoking. I'm a smoker in my mind that uses vaping for my nicotine. But switching is not instantaneous. You've got to give it time. It's like getting used to a new pair of shoes or a new partner moving into your house. You have to give it time. You've got to get used to all the funny little habits that come with vaping rather than smoking. And you need to start off with a decent device, because the technology's got so good nowadays. There's many devices you can buy on the market that actually give you a really good experience. When I first started, we had these silly little things that looked like a cigarette, for God's sake. I'm sad they even call this e-cigs. E-cigarettes have got nothing to do with cigarettes, excepting they're a substitute and they deliver your nicotine to you. And the new ones, of course, don't look anything like cigarettes. So this is a big box mod with a tank on the top. Does that look like a cigarette? No, but boy, it gives very good satisfaction, because that's me. That's what I'm doing now. Other people do different things. Here's a little mod that I have just decorated. I have to show you this. It's actually a Tesla Stealth, but the rubberizing on this batch was pretty bad. So when it started to come off, I asked my husband, please just get the rubber off, and I decorated it. Isn't that nice? This is a really nice device, actually. It's got a very big battery. It's got my favorite tank on, and the experience to me is as good as smoking. It's as good as smoking. And it's worth a try. If you're a smoker, think, I'm going to switch my nicotine delivery by trying vaping. Ignore the clouders. For goodness sake, ignore them. That's not vaping. Vaping is what normal people do at home, at work, wherever they go, and it's using a device to have nicotine, which has great advantages to your mind, physically, and everything else. Nicotine is a very interesting medication, really. It boosts your thought process, it ups your mood, it relaxes you. It's got many, many benefits. And so think, if you're going to switch, I'm going to just switch my nicotine delivery, and be patient. It takes time. It takes time for you to get used to this funny, cold, hard technology, when before you've been using leaves and paper. It's a completely different concept. But the action of vaping is the same as smoking. It's a way to get nicotine. It's nicotine that we are all wanting. I won't say craving, because I don't have the cravings that I had with smoking, with vaping. If I can't vape, that's okay, mate. If I couldn't smoke, I'd get the screaming heebie-jeebies. And I had to. I would kill for a cigarette. I never get that feeling with vaping. And this is why vapors know that nicotine taken in on vapor from a vaping device is quite different to the nicotine that we get with all its other chemicals in inhaling smoke from the tobacco plant. But we need to be grateful to the tobacco plant, because the tobacco plant gives us the nicotine that we vape, and it gives smokers the nicotine that they smoke. And unfortunately, that is the problem with tobacco control, because they've lumped vaping into tobacco. And unfortunately, who of us can argue that the nicotine in our vaping doesn't come from the good old tobacco plant that has given the world so very much pleasure. Thank you for vaping with me. That was my rant for today.